Hey Adam, how's it going? Nice to meet you. My name is Shem and I am super excited to go over some sports from your recent poker live stream. But before we do, I thought I'd give a quick introduction about myself. So I started playing poker. I'm a professional poker player. I started playing poker when I was 10 actually, when I found Poker Zynga on Facebook. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then I rediscovered poker when I was 16 on Twitch. And I remember, then I started playing for real money and studying and also live streaming myself. And I'm 24 now, so it's been over 8 years of that journey. Last year, I became a full-time professional playing mainly live as well. I work with some of the biggest poker players in the world, like Daniel Negreanu and Charlie Carroll, and a lot of the streamers as well, live streamers like Egyptian and Olin Pav and Kevin Martin, Jamie Staples, you name them all. Um, I have a coach slash mentor named Martin Jacobson who won the 2014 WSOP main event for $10 million. The poker players that I've actually mentioned, mainly I worked with them on the content creation side because I've also been doing that since I was 16 and I have my own business working with some of the biggest content creators in the world. Like I worked with Jake Paul and Ben Azelart and a lot of different people, but also poker players. So that's sort of my side business besides poker. And yeah, I think that's more or less it. So without further ado, let's jump into the first spot. I think this is very interesting. You opened Ace King in a PKO event, Ace King offsuit, 100 big blinds deep. These spots are always very, very interesting, especially in multi-way. So, okay, right off the bat, multi-way is a complicated beast. It's something I only recently started studying, and I think, honestly, this is the most underrated spot in poker that most people make mistakes, and they just don't have a clue on how to play it. And I could see, I'm not trying to be harsh or anything, but I could see from the way you play multi-way spots, you also have sort of that tendency to not really be sure what to do, and if you hit, you bet, and if you don't, you check, and that's not very good. You want to be balanced, obviously, in these spots. Now, okay, so this is a very interesting spot. The small blind goes with the lead, which is not a thing. But I want to forget that for a second, okay? I want to look at the general heuristics of this spot. Let's say it checks to you, like it should, okay? I'm assuming you're going to start with a bet. Now, that's not really a good thing. You might ask yourself, why? Well, when you're in multi-way pots, you really want to think about your opening range, okay? So you open under the gun or under the gun +1, very strong range, especially 100 bigs deep. King 4 Deuce Rainbow is a board that you're not going to hit very often with your entire range. Not just this specific hand, Ace King offsuit. Okay, you hit it, it's a great board. I'm talking about your entire range, which includes Ace Queen suited, Ace Jack suited, Ace 10 suited, 5s, 7s, 9s, you name it. 10 Jack suited, Queen Jack suited. You have a lot of misses. So on this board, and we're going to see this in some other spots as well, you actually want to start with a check. Now, the idea behind it is that you want to stay uncapped. Meaning when you check, you could still have monsters. You can still have kings, deuces, and fours, and ace king, and so on. With ace king, I would elect to go for a check raise, especially if there's a bet and another person calls. It gets a bit complicated. 100 bigs deep. Do you really want to get it all in on the flop? Probably not. But that's the way I would play it. I would actually elect to check here and not bet. Now, the small blind decided to donk lead, which is a thing, but not on this board texture. Donk leading from the small blind is another interesting beast that I just started recently. So donk leading with a set is actually a thing. And funny enough, I recently did it in a poker tournament here at the casino against my friend, and I stacked him. But that was like on a very specific board and a very specific range. This is not really a thing now. So, you call the flop. I think that's fine. You might even elect to raise it. Then you call the turn, and then you call the river. I mean, it's very hard to find bluffs, natural bluffs in this spot. So I don't blame you for playing it that way. I just wanted to explain more of the multi-way aspect of it. If it checked to you, what you should do. In this spot, it's very weird, and I don't blame you to go either way. You can honestly, I don't blame you if you honestly elected to fold turn or river, because What kind of bluffs does he have? I don't really fucking know. Um, it's okay though. I don't think you made a huge mistake here. I just, wanted to explain that spot. Okay, this one is an interesting one. I think you just elected to raise fold the sevens, which hurts me, especially in the high rollers. And you touched on this. You want to be extra sticky. So that's something I noticed. You're on the tighter side, and that's okay. That's your play style, right? Everybody has their own play style. But if you want constructive criticism and how to play GTO and like solid poker, you have to call any pairs on this spot, and then you go from there. You have position. You could have ace king. You could have ace queen, whatever, ace five suited. You could still be ahead, or you could hit a seven, and then you most likely stack him, which is another big thing as to why you want to call in position. So this is just a tiny mistake that you want to avoid. You want to be extra sticky in these spots, especially in the high rollers. It will make you a much tougher opponent to play against when you start calling more and folding less. Okay, trying to go fast so we don't go over like an hour here. And hopefully I make sense and I'm not... Again, you folded here. So this was a multi-way spot, so it's a bit different. Now, if the button called, then your fold is totally fine. It's actually like a good fold, a disciplined fold. But once the button checks, I think you cannot fold king 8. Again, you want to be extra sticky. He's going to have a lot of bluffs, semi-bluffs. Honestly, if the board breaks, let's say it comes turn deuce, river deuce, you're probably going to have to check call all the way in these high rollers. I know it's kind of fucked up, but they are capable of fighting like bluffs in these spots. In the lower stakes, you can start check folding more, but in the higher stakes, you definitely don't want to pass up on this opportunity. You want to check call at least once and see a turn. You can hit a king or an 8, and then you're probably good, right? So another spot you want to avoid folding, unless you have a very good, tell that he's never bluffing or something, Okay, so this is the most interesting spot that I think you played that, I'll be honest, I don't want to sound harsh, but this is probably the puntiest hand that you played out of the entire live stream. And it kind of sucks that it's also in the biggest event, in the 1K, and you are 140 bigs deep. So how do we start? Okay, so you decided to go for 5x raise pre-flop. Granted, I don't think you would have changed much if you went a bit bigger, but I think you actually want to go here like a tiny bit bigger, like maybe 12 to 14 big blinds. Why? Because you're out of position, and also because you're very fucking deep. I mean, I probably would have not changed the result, so it doesn't matter too much. But for future, that's the sizing I would go for. Now, I remember on the live stream, you saw this this flop, and you were like, oh, it's pretty decent for my hand, for my range. I'm like, no, it's really not. It's actually a really bad flop. And so, why is it bad? First of all, for your range, it's really horrendous because you're not going to have 10-8. You don't have the nuts. Would you squeeze here with 7s and 9s? I doubt it. Would you squeeze with jacks? I mean, 140, 150 big blinds deep, you actually, I think, supposed to call jacks. Like, squeezing is probably like a, how do you say it? Like a mixed frequency. So you don't have any sets. You shouldn't have any 2 pairs. You don't have the nuts. So your hand is pretty face up. You either have some sort of gut shot, maybe straight draw type hand, or you have overs. So I would definitely, especially getting called 2 ways, would start with a check here always. With your entire range, I think that's necessary. And then you bet, which is all right, I guess. It's not the end of the world, but then you get raised. And this is where you want to start puking. I don't think you can do anything besides a call or even start considering a fold here, I'll be honest, because what kind of bluffs does he have? I don't really know. Maybe Queen 10 suited with the backdoor flush, King 10 suited. You block that. I mean, King Queen you block. I mean, Kings is, you prefer to have 10s here or Queens. 10s. I would say 10s. So, but I don't know if you raise that pre. I mean, So this is not a spot that you are very happy about. Definitely not going all in or raising here. This is a no-no. This is, you know, I'm trying to be respectful and not sound harsh, but it's sort of what we call a punt. Going all in here for 140 big blinds. I don't really know. You're either folding worse or you're getting called by better. You see this guy actually tanked with bottom two pair because you shouldn't really go all in here unless you have him beat or you have a massive draw. I mean, it's just not a thing to jam 140 bigs on this board. Honestly, yeah, I mean, I would just suggest to start with a check call, and then who knows if you check and the guy bets and the button re-raises, you can actually fucking fold kings and be happy with it. You're 140 bigs deep. But yeah, just getting it all in the flop, it's really, looking at your range, it's really a no-no. Hopefully that makes sense to you and why you should start with a check on this board against two opponents. Okay, on to the next one. I think I talked too much on that spot, but I really wanted to reiterate what you want to do because I think that was the biggest punt that you had out of the whole live stream.
Just going to fold this.
And I also want to say you played amazing. Like, you actually a very solid player. You do have leaks, but you fucking won the $600 tournament. Congrats on the score, by the way. That's a nice score. So you know what you're doing. Just some spots, I guess, are very complicated in poker, and especially multi-way. You folded the A7 suited. I think you can go either way. I think I would have called again. You want to be extra sticky, especially if it's not close to the ICM. At this point, you were like 20-something away from the money. You know what? It's not as bad as I thought it is. You can elect to fold. You can elect to call. I think those are the only two options. You can 3-bet fold. So I don't hate it. It looks extra nuts when you have 19 bigs deep. But I think both are fine. So that's a fine play. Let's see what's the next one is. Nines. Okay. This is a spot that I recently also made the same mistake. 40 bigs deep against the button, especially in a bounty, you can start going all in. I know 40 big sounds like a lot, but 8s and 9s specifically are hands you want to go all in with. And I can actually prove it to you. 40 bigs deep. Okay, so I have GTO Wizard here, which is an amazing software I use to check spots. If I made a mistake or things I could have done better, I highly recommend you get it as well. It's only like $90 a month, maybe less if you go for the yearly subscription. Honestly, man, it will make you such a better player, especially if you use it on the daily to study spots and hand reviews. It's really worth it for someone who wants to improve the poker game. But anyhow, so this is what I use. 40 bigs, we go to that. Button opened, and this is a regular tournament, not even a PKO. In a PKO, you can go even wider, I think, shoving, because the guy should call you wider. And so, look at this. Okay, I made a mistake. Well, I mean, it's again, it's mixed frequency. So you actually want to jam 8, like all the pocket pairs below 9s, you can actually just rip it. You don't want to induce, and you don't want to call. You just want to rip it. 9s, you start inducing, but again, with PKO, I don't even mind you just jamming it. Honestly, you should, get called wider by all these pocket pairs and so on. So you played it all right, actually. But again, I want you to, again, this is just the thought. Start thinking about these spots. You can actually jam 40 bigs effective, button versus big, and it's not a mistake. It's not a punt, anything like that. So you go for the induce, which I think is fine, as we saw from the solver. But then you're gonna get called. That's the thing. You're gonna get called a lot in PKO, especially out of position when you get covered because he wants your bounty, and then you're gonna be put in a lot of tough spots with 9s. That's why I would probably elect to just jam it, unless you are, top A elite player and you know all the spots, and then you can outplay the person. Then sure, go for the induce. But I try to simplify things in poker. It's always, it will save you a lot of headaches to just simplify things and just go for sometimes the simpler approach. Down the line will save you a lot of time and headache if you, run deep in a tournament, especially live and that kind of stuff. I try to simplify things a lot more. And then you went for the bet, check, bet. I mean, it's a very tough spot. I think I wouldn't mind you betting the turn, honestly, for value. Um, Once he checks the turn, though, it's either a queen or nothing. So honestly, you can go for a call. People like to overbluff in online tournaments. You can go for a call. The fold is fine as well. I think it's all right. But yeah, I would have just simplified it and gone all in. And there you go. You would have saved you that headache because the guy would have probably folded and you would have just picked up chips and you would have moved on to the next hand. So um, just something to think about. Um, okay, so this is another spot. You elected to call with ICM. I would actually, so with ICM, you actually want to shove more. I know it's a bit backward, the way that goes, but with ICM, you know, they have to call you a lot tighter. And so ace jack suited here is a pretty slam dunk all in, 22 big blinds effective. I would have just gone all in. I know you are 8 away from the money or whatever at this point, but yeah, I mean, especially in high rollers, that's kind of the reason why you do want to go all in. You have a good hand, so it's not like you know, it's not a bad all in general. But with ICM, I think it's more so an all in. But you went it for the call, and then you obviously folded the flop. That's fine as well. Okay, what's next? You open ace jack offsuit from 19 big blinds. Another ICM spot. ICM is a very, very, very complicated beast. I actually read an article written by a professor. He had a, what do you call it? For his PhD, he wrote a whole article, like a 60-page article about ICM in poker MTTs. So I can link you to that article. It's very interesting, and it talks about a lot about different ICM modules and what you should do. Here you went for the raise. I'm assuming you're gonna call if you get shoved on. Honestly, man, you can just go ahead and go all in here. For you, it worked out well actually in this hand, but you know, close to the money, you don't want to raise call very much, and this is like a mediocre, like medium type strength holdings. So I would just elect to go all in here, pre-flop. I think it's fine, but raising is not bad. I mean, again, you're inducing if you get shoved on, you have to call, which is, it is what it is, close to the money. I'm not a fan of that either. I'd rather just jam and only get called by like jack splash or something, you know, like. But here, okay, so you opened. Here you actually can go bigger. So the GTO sizing on this board is 55%. A lot of people don't know this and they go like the third or something. I'm actually going to show you. Watch me be like absolutely wrong here and then you're going to roast me. But okay, so you open 20 bigs from the cutoff. The big blind defended. And the flop came jack 8 deuce. So watch this. You actually want to bet on the bigger side here. You want to bet... Never mind. Look at me. I'm wrong. 25%. Okay. That is actually very interesting. I'm not sure why. See, even myself, I make mistakes all the time. I would have gone for like the 50% mark. And you can like click here and see which hands want to go for the 50%. So, I mean, kings, ace jack off is fine. So, I mean, I'm not totally wrong here, but you get the idea. I would have bet bigger because there's a lot of draws out there and it's like, you know, a wet board. But okay, your sizing is fine. You get called. Now, here you decide to check back, and I remember on live stream you said that you don't need much protection. I actually disagree. And we can actually, again, let's put this in the, okay, so let's put this in the solver. You bet, he called, and then the 6 of clubs come, okay? And he checks again. I would say my initial instinct is that you want to go big or jam. Here you can see ace jack offsuit is never a check. You want to go for like essentially all in, like half your stack. It's the same thing. So why is that? Well, for starters, it's a wet ass fucking board, man. You don't want to give him a free card at all. He could have 9-10, he could have 9-7, he could have a flash draw, he could have a backdoor flash now that is a flash draw. Could have Jack X, and you know the river could ruin you getting max value. So here I would elect to bet big. like half your stack, if not just, you know, rip it all in. Especially with ICM, man, you can definitely, it's not a mistake. You can go all in, pot and a half. You know, even him folding something with like 20-30% equity is a win in your case, because you're close to the money. You don't want to give him a free card, and you don't want to bet and then let him, you know, shove on you or whatever. So all in is the best, in my opinion. That's what I would have elected for. Checking, I think, is the worst out of the options, but that's what you decide to do. And then best river in the deck. It's very lucky, and he goes all in on you. You have a snap call. And yeah, I mean, but again, if the river wasn't a brick, if the river was an ace, completing the flush, completing the whatever, you might lose value here with pair against top pair against top pair, and you don't want to do that. So would have just jammed the turn. He would have called you, and you would have held regardless. But and it's also very important in poker, as you can see, you know, not to be results oriented. Okay, you won the hand, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you played it perfect. You know what I'm saying? Vice versa. You could have lost the hand. Does that mean you played it bad and made a mistake? No. You could have played it perfectly, and you know, it was just bad luck. So it's very important in poker not to be results oriented. Just because you played a hand a certain way and you won or you lost doesn't mean you made a mistake, or vice versa. Here you got the best result and you won and you got a double up. But I think it was a big mistake to give him a free card on the turn, and jamming or betting big is the best approach in this regard. That will, you know, give you the most EV in the long run. This was an interesting one. I haven't seen you do a lot of this, but you decided to jam 15 bigs with King 3 suited on the button. That's definitely too wide, man. Even small blind, you don't want to jam for that much. I would have just elected for raise fold. Again, this just to reiterate, results oriented. Okay, you binked the river, you won, so you got the max in this case, but this is definitely on the puntier side. I would have definitely just gone for the raise fold. In the solver, if I go to the solver and I show you what the solver would have done, I mean, nobody really does this, and it's okay to deviate. You go for the limp. I mean, 17 big blinds effective. Whoops, sorry, 17. You can start raising. I would have just raise folded. You can even fold. I guess folding is not good. So if it's limping on the solver, I would have just gone for the raise fold. Definitely not a jam into two opponents. But you got lucky, so there you go. Next one, aces. Okay, let's see this one. I forget what happened here. You raised. Oh, okay. So this one you didn't play bad. This is just a sizing tell that I think I had on you. I noticed that you usually go for you kind of change the sizing. You don't want to do that. You want to stick to the same sizing, which for me, usually in online tournaments is 2.2x. I just noticed that when you have a really strong holding, you go for the min raise, which is 2x. I don't know. Just be careful, because, you know, if you live stream a lot and these high stakes people see you, and they're like, oh, okay, now I have a sizing tail. When he raises 2x, he's more likely to have aces or kings or a strong holding. So just stick to the same sizing whenever you play. Obviously, if you have 15 big blinds, it makes sense to min raise. But if you are above 20, just go for like 2.1 or 2.2 and stick to it. And that way you will not give any sizing tails online. There you go. Okay. This one is another interesting one. So let me go back. Okay. How did you play the aces? So, okay, so you squeezed, makes sense, normal. Here you went for the half pot, which is decent. I like it. Turn, you bet. I didn't really understand this, but again, I'm not saying it's a mistake. I just think there's a lot of draws out there. It is a pretty wet board. You want to charge his draws more, because right now you're giving him the right odds to call with a flash draw and hit, or an open-ended, stuff like that. If you bet a bit bigger, you're making it not profitable for him to call with queen jack or a flash draw, and then he needs to start folding those if he's a good player, or if he's a bad player, he will make a mistake and you will make money from him calling and not getting the right pot odds to call, if that makes sense. So the sizing here is not very great. I would go again for like half pot, maybe even 2/3, and shove any river. Um, Especially, if he has king queen, if he has any king x, you want to charge all the value hands and also all the draws. So just go bigger next time. Don't be scared to do that. And then river, check, check. I think that's fine. I mean, see, with jacks, you maybe might get of the max again. I'm not entirely sure. He might have called half pot again. Who knows? But it's just the heuristics of these spots and how you want to approach them, I think. Okay, on to the next one. We have a few more. I have no idea how long I've been talking for. Hopefully it's not too long. Try and speed it up. Okay, so interesting hand. You flatted the small, which is correct, and then you face this bet. Now, how do you want to approach this spot? We can actually go to the solver for this, and we can see which kind of hands you want to check raise and which kind of hands you want to check call or check fold. This is a perfect hand, in my opinion, that you want to check raise. Why? You are out of position, and you have a lot of equity whenever whatever he has. You have a flash draw, you have a gut shot, and he could be bluffing. And if you just check call, you let him start bluffing into you, and you're going to start to have to fold your equity, and you don't want to do that. So I would just check raise, get it all in if he jams on me. And the last thing is for value, when you actually hit your hand like a flush and so on, you are out of position. So it's very hard to get full double up, like full value. As opposed to if you get it all in on the flop, you will, if you hit your hand, you will also get full value. So I think the way you want to approach it with these hands, out of position, you want to check raise unless you're very deep. And if you are in position, you can definitely just check call and play in position. So again, let's go to this board, the solver. We have 40 big blinds. And he opened under the gun. Right? Yeah. And then you're in the small blind. So let's look at the type of hands you call here. Jack 9 suited, you definitely call. Okay, great. I mean, it's very basic stuff, but it's good to go over it. The flop came King 10-5. King 10-5. You check, which is, you don't have any leads. He bets like a third. Was it a third? Let me check. A bit more than a third. I'll just go a third. Now, here is the hands you want to check raise. Look at Jack 9 here. So Jack 9 is mainly a raise. I mean, you called, which is fine. But in general, I would just always raise this combo. And, if he goes all in on you, it's kind of sucky, but you go with it. I mean, it's important to note, though, like Jack 8 suited, you actually just check call. So the added equity of the gut shot gives you enough equity to go with it and, raise here for value. Well, not value, it's like a semi-bluff. And so you look at the other hands. What other hands do you do this with? Well, obviously 5s, 10s would make sense for value. You do it sometimes as a bluff with ace queen, ace jack. And then all the ace x, flash draw. This is another one I think you would have missed. Correct me if I'm wrong. But ace x with the nut flash draw out of position. This is a good one. You want to check raise as well. Get it in if you can. Just to deny some equity and, run your equity. So that's how I would approach this spot. So Queen 9, Jack 9, you definitely want to check raise. And the ace x of spades, those are for like semi-bluffs. And then, if you have sets or two pair, you definitely do it for value. Even, top pair, good kicker, you can start doing it for value as well. And then let's see how did it go. And then you see it's a brick, and now, if he bets big again, you're in like a shitty spot. But he bets small, so you get the equity to call, and then you hit. And then you decide to go for the donk lead. It is what it is, but this illustrates it perfectly. You hit the flush on the river, and you didn't get full value. Who knows? If you check raise the flop, maybe you would have, maybe you would have folded. But regardless, it just shows you that it's very hard to get full value when you hit your hand out of position. So that's that. Let's see the next one. We have like 5 more spots. So again, this is a multi-way spot. You raised under the gun. You got called by cutoff and big blind. This is the flop. Jack 6-4 flash draw. So I want you to think again, multi-way. Again, complicated beast. But think about your entire range. Not just your current hand, which is on this board is fucking amazing. You actually miss this board quite a lot. If you have ace king, ace queen, king queen, queen 10 suited, 8, 7, ace 5 suited, you name it, so many hands that you actually just miss. So to stay uncapped, you want to start by checking this flop. Now, what we are doing here is that we let, the last guy act. He's very capped when he checks. So he needs to bet a lot, especially on these kind of wet boards. And when it gets back to you, you start check raising for value or for bluffs. This is obviously falls under the value combination that you will check raise to get it in on the flop. And this is that's a better approach that I like to do than just start betting, because then it's very complicated to balance it with bluffs as well. It feels to me you might be a bit unbalanced in this spot, and you might be, when you bet you have more value, and when you check you missed kind of thing. So you want to be careful on that, and just check your entire range, especially when it doesn't connect with your range, and then either check call, check fold, or check raise. So that's all I wanted to touch on that. Yeah, so multi-way, again, very complicated, but that's how I would approach this spot. I tend to check a lot out of position, especially in multi-way. And then I like to check raise a lot. It's like more deceiving. It's a lot harder to deal with. Here you flopped bottom set, and you elected to just call. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this. I'll tell you why. Yes, the board is very, very dry, correct, and you mentioned that. But I'll tell you what, you have bottom set. You will want to start extracting value from top pair, or even better, if they have an overpair. And you are multi-way. Heads up, I would say it's okay, but multi-way, you definitely want to squeeze here. You also want to be balanced and do this with bluffs, like 3-4 suited with the backdoor flush, ace-4 suited with the backdoor flush, ace-3 suited with the backdoor flush. Those are hands that I would take as the check-raise bluff, and then you want to mix it with deuces and fives and maybe ace-10 suited, hands like that. So that's the way I would approach this spot, and you might think it's very fucking knotted when you check raise here, but then again, I just gave you a few examples of hands you can do it as a semi-bluff. And it's important to note, this is a fucking PKO tournament. You want to get the money in ASAP. You guys are very deep, and you don't want to lose value against ace-10, and then the turn is a queen or something. So I would definitely squeeze here, try and get stacks in the middle for a bounty, and just play aggressive in these spots, but you decided to call and play a trappy. And then you get a squeeze from the big, which is just the dream, really. I mean, and you just decide to check call. I mean, I think you played it fine. I would jam here. You go for the jam, which is very strong. And I think he folded, or did he call? I don't remember. I guess he folded. But it doesn't matter. I mean, again, not thinking about results or anything, I would have just gone for the squeeze for the reasons that I mentioned. Okay, on to the next one. We have a few more. Again, I'm hoping that I'm not coming across too harsh here. I just think that some spots, are necessary to go over in this approach. But overall, you played amazing. This is okay. So you have a tendency to overbet on flops. Think about the range that the small blind has here. It actually hits this board quite well. So you should, in theory, get a lot of check raises. And you have a perfect fucking hand to just check on this flop. You have middle pair, backdoor straight, backdoor flush. I don't want to get check raised here, especially 1 of 4. So this is now with massive ICM. So I would check. I like to check this. Just for looking at ranges and that kind of stuff. Betting is alright though. You go for the raise, check. I would definitely check now. So you got to think about what you're getting. I mean, betting is alright actually, but you block a lot of his so you bet big, which I don't really like as well, and then you check, and you value owned yourself because he had 10 jacks suited. This just again illustrates this board really hits his range a lot more than it hits you, I think. He might have an advantage on this board, so you want to start with a check, especially with your hand. Now, another thing is that I spoke about earlier, you want to simplify poker. So in these stages of your career where you're not, playing these high rollers, like Jason Kuhn or whatever it may be, you want to have really, when you bet, you want to have two thought process in mind. You either want to bet for value because you know you're ahead, or bet as a bluff because you know you're behind. Here on the flop, you went for like a merge bet. I'm not a huge fan of it. I would have just gone for a check on the flop, turn you call, and then river you might call again. So you might have lost the minimum. I'm not sure. You would have lost similar stacks anyways, but you value owned yourself because you didn't consider his range flatting from the small blind, especially with ICM. It hits his range very much. So that's about that one. Let's see. We have a few more spots. I'm going to try and wrap it up. Okay, again, so this is talking about, this is another hand that you want to think about. Am I betting for bluff or am I betting for value? This is a hand that I don't really know. I would love to know your thought process behind this one because the play didn't make a lot of sense. So you call the king jack, you check, he checks, you check, he checks, and then river you go for a big bet. Now, I'm assuming it was for value. I'm assuming you weren't bluffing here. Because I'll tell you why. This hand is way too strong to start bluffing. You got to think about your nut low. Those are the hands you want to start bluffing with. If you have 5-6 of clubs, those are definitely hands you want to bet for as a bluff. King Jack, top pair, no reason to bluff. You are at the top of your range besides a flush. So you really want to check and hope to win. Betting here for value is too thin. You're just going to get called by any flush, and you basically folding anything that's worse than your hand anyway. So for that reason, I'm not sure why you bet here, but just think about those concepts. You want to bet for value as a bluff. This hand is a perfect check. And if he bets, you probably call, honestly, let's be honest, because you have a good hand to bluff catch. But you don't want to start bluffing or betting for value in that spot. Okay, this is a very interesting spot. So multi-way again, you flat from the button. I think that's okay. The big blind actually goes for the it's a thing for the donk lead one big blind, which basically essentially goes for the check. And the out of position pre-flop aggressor goes for the call, which caps him tremendously. It means he doesn't have sets, he doesn't have straights, he doesn't have two pair, he doesn't have an overpair. This is a spot where you want to pounce and you want to raise here. Because like I said, he's very capped, and you have the perfect fucking hand to do so. You have an open-ended backdoor flush draw, so you have a lot of equity even if they continue. But you want to start bluffing because you don't have a handmade hand. You block the nuts, which is part of what the big blind would do this with. You block 7-8, and you can hit the nuts on the turn or the river. So I would definitely 100% squeeze here, 5-6x even, because like I said, he's capped, and you're only worried of the big blind, but you block a lot of his hands. So betting here, or essentially you are checking. It's not the preferred route to go with your hand. Or in general, I would mainly, yeah, like I said, raise. Again, same thing. I would definitely raise the turn. Now you're in like a shitty spot where you really need to hit your hand to win. And then on the river you hit, and you don't even get value because you check. And you look at the hands. So this illustrates it perfectly. The pre-flop aggressor had ace king, so you essentially you give them free cards to try and hit an ace or a king and beat you. You don't want to do that. You want to raise. The guy had a nut flash draw. I don't really know in theory if that's a thing. He should have gone for the check raise. But you would have gotten more value if you raised the flop, barrel the turn, and then probably check the river. You would have got maximum value against the ace deuce, unless he goes for the donk and then rips it on you. But this illustrates why you want to go for the raise, because the guy was extra capped and he had ace king here. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a bit complicated, this concept, multi-way, but start thinking about different ranges and if they are capped or not, and how you can like exploit that capness basically. Again, so this is not a multi-way spot, but this is a spot you want to actually check, I think, 100% of your range out of position. We can check this. So you are 90 bigs deep, or let's say 80, whatever, same thing. You opened hijack, and the cutoff called, and the flop came Jack 8-9 rainbow. So on connected boards like this, you wanna, I think, you wanna. Okay, no, I was wrong again. Okay, wow, okay. See, I have a different approach for these spots. I like to check out of position a lot because it's connected and it's going to hit your opponent a lot. But it's all right. I guess you went for the raise. You were considering a check, though. It's all right. I think either are fine. Just wanted to, just be open-minded to different concepts in poker. Poker is such a nice game that rarely are you like 100% correct because you can always play it a different way. So here you went for the raise, he raised you, you just called, that's fine, check, check. River I would go for value and bet, but you checked and he had ace queen. Okay. I mean, check calling on the river is fine. I would have honestly gone for a value bet, but I think it's so-so. You can go either. Here you went for the raise with the ace king. Okay, so this is a really bad board for you, for your range. Again, think about your range and your particular holding. Even if you have aces here, it's pretty fucking shitty. Like, I'm pretty sure aces want to start with like a check, and I can prove it to you. Again, I might be wrong, but let's try. 50 bigs, effective. Because this is the second to last hand, I'm just gonna go in depth into this one. So we had, is this 6 max? 3, 6, 8. So let's say you opened under the gun 1, you raise him, hijack, he calls. The flop came, what is it? Wow, my voice is gonna be dead after this, man. Holy shit, I feel like I've spoken for like an hour. So he's mainly checking, but you see he has some leads. The dude has some donk leads because of the range advantage. Okay, I fucked up, but I mean, it's not really a fuck up. Again, 40% of the time you're supposed to check here. Why? Because you just don't hit this range very often when you 3-bet him. So ace king offsuit is a hand you primarily want to start with a check, which is what I would have done, but you bet. Oh no. Okay, you went for a check. Great. There you go. Look at me. I'm criticizing something that is nothing to criticize about, but you can bet this. It just, but it just shows you, even aces, right? I was speaking about how aces, they can check. Kings, aces, you can start by checking those as well, because it would suck to get check raise on this board with aces, and then you, I guess, go all in. But like, it's uncomfortable, right? Going back to the king's hand, where we went all in for 140 bigs deep. Remember that hand? Yeah. So it's the same concept. Then he bets big, and you decide to just fold. Honestly, so I just wanted to show that your folding is totally fine when he bets big, but I think you can also call and be sticky. Again, it's all about the concept of being sticky, especially in high rollers. You want to be a bit more sticky. You could still have a lot of bluffs here. You can still hit your ace and king, or king, and might be good. So yeah, you want to be a bit on the stickier side in these high rollers, especially. So folding is whatever. It's like a mix, as you can see. But just, again, being sticky is not a bad thing. And then the last hand, I'm not sure if it's this one or something else. Okay, so this is one last concept that I wanted to speak about that I think you can improve upon. This is not solver approved because it's very hard for solvers to have PKO type stuff, although GTO Wizard did just add some features for ICM. They have ICM, they have PKO as well. So this spot, how do I approach this spot? I see that you tend to overfold for bounties, which a lot of people do. In these spots, obviously you have deuces, it's not ideal, but there was some other spots that are similar that you folded 3s and 4s to the same concept. Someone raised, someone went all in, you cover both and you just fold. In these spots, pocket pairs are slam dunk all in. Why? Because They perform really well multi-way, and you're usually going to have 50% or so to beat the opponent. And with the bounty, it's just worth it. You want to accumulate bounties. Um, this is not a terrible fold by any means. I'm just talking about the general heuristics of bounties and how you want to approach the spots with pocket pairs. Usually, you just want to go all in. I know it's high variance, and it's very like degenerate type of thinking, but that's just like the correct type of play in bounty tournaments. So folding deuces, it is whatever, but I mean, I may have gone for this spot, or there are a few other spots that I would have gone for that you elected to fold, and it's okay. I mean, I'm just giving you my thought process. Your play style is totally fine. If you want to play low ball like Dylan Negreanu, go for it. I think in bounties you don't want to do that, but to each their own. I mean, you can go either way. So anyway, I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope that I provided you with some value in these 20 spots or so throughout this live stream. Again, you played fucking solid, man. Like, better than most poker players, honestly. And I don't know how long you've been playing for. A lot of these sports are very tough, are very complicated, but you've maneuvered yourself very well. You know. I hope that I provided you with some value, and it was a bit entertaining as well in the process. I know I spoke for a lot. Hopefully this is not too long. Yeah, I think that's everything. I mean, listen, I'm down to link up. If you need coaching in poker, I'm happy to help. If you need content creation services, I do that as well. So I'd be happy to help. Or just in general, stay connected. The money would help me a ton for bankroll, and also I'm planning on going to Sydney in a few days with my friends for a live series. So that would help a lot, actually. And yeah, but I mean, besides, forget about the money. I really, you know, what's important here, I really hope that you learned something and that you found it educational and it had value. And let me know if you have any questions, your thoughts, everything, if I explain things good or not, or I don't know. This is sort of the first time that I'm doing this type of thing. And yeah, man, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hope to talk soon. Okay, peace.